Good morning. I think we'll start seated today. And before we get too settled, because I failed to send out prompts, let's have a couple of blankets and a ball handy. Just constant proof. No one can ever claim that I'm smart because figuring out how to set these things up is a challenge. So, finding your seat, settling in, maybe letting the eyes close. Feeling into the cycles and rates of respiration. Finding the balance on either side of the breath. And within that, or from that, finding the balance in the physicality of your feet. And we'll give ourselves about 50 more seconds here, just finding our way into practice. There's these two traveling companions who have been traveling together for quite some time. And they've gone through quite a few things together. Walking down a moonlit path. Eyes are closed. Let's allow them to slowly open. We'll receive some light here. Let's just take our backs of the hands and try to find something to press into. So if the thighs work, that's great. Otherwise, you can go forward. We're just looking to kind of get a little forearm activation here. Doesn't need to be super movement oriented, but if movement feels good, you can kind of roll the wrists. Again, same thing if we're in front of us here. Looking for this anterior forearm musculature. One of those spots that just doesn't get a lot of love or attention. And maybe a breath or two more here. When you feel like you've kind of found enough, let's release that and just bring our hands together at heart center. But keep the fingers splayed out as wide as we can get them there. And raise the elbows up so that they are creating that symmetry. And just start to, again, play with some of the forearm musculature. Now we get some anterior and posterior musculature as we move the fingers, finger mounds kind of back and forth. And start to think about what the shoulder structure is doing as well, really retracting and broadening the collarbone. And then as you're moving the fingers, right, as we have the elbows up, we're broadening that collarbone space, especially with the collarbone broadening. Check back in with the breath. Super easy to shorten the breath here. Maybe one more in each direction. And then we'll relax and let the palms just roll up. We're hoping that the arms feel relatively free here, like we can just relax and release. And then let's just allow a little neck movement. And so I'm moving in a circular direction. If you'd like to do something else, no problem. I'm going to give us a halfway point just so that you know you can make your own adjustments. Just looking to move the neck here so that we start to feel into some space. And that'll be our halfway point. So I'm going to go back the opposite direction. But your movement here can be anything. Feels right for you. Check back in with your breath. Make sure that you're at ease within the respiratory cycles. And maybe just another breath cycle before we come back to neutral. And when we do come back to neutral, let's just find some ease. We'll extend the legs out in front of us so we can find staff. And from staff, getting that nice vertical spinal column, let's just tilt ourselves forward into a fold. Depending on how we're post-holiday here, so maybe there's some Halloween candy residual carbohydrates making the hamstring sticky. Right? Bend the knees, make yourself available. We'll give ourselves about another 45 seconds here. Checking in with your rate of respiration, making sure you're at ease within your breath. Last 10 seconds. And when it feels appropriate, let's bring the spine back towards vertical. We'll engage our blankets or towels here. Going to go from a shelf fold to a hot dog fold. And roughly the same thing with the other. Actually, let's change that. Let's take the other and we'll roll that. So we get a nice solid roll. And let's take that roll right behind us. And then the other blanket can be adjusted. So if you need more length, you have more torso length, you have that second blanket, it can stay in that hot dog fold or it can fold more towards a block to give an equivalent head lift. And we're just going to lower ourselves down on our prop here or on our props, depending on your torso length. Palms are going to roll up. We're going to use some of that arm space to help expand this rib cage space, this anterior torso musculature. Really thinking about the thumb edge of your hands relaxing into the external rotation. So the thumbs relax down, the shoulders externally rotate. And then sending full breath into the rib cage. I should note, with the roll, it's a larger, it's a higher density, right? So if this feels like it's too much, you could go back to the flat version. You can also always pull it out, right? But make sure that your body is receptive to this roll. We're early in class, and it's a big adjustment. Can be a big adjustment. And then make sure you're continually relaxing towards the thumb side of your hands with the palms up. And so the two travelers walking down this path, they come across a Y illuminated by the moon. One path heads directly into this very dark forest. It also happens to head directly in the direction they're headed. And the other path very clearly works its way away from the direction they're headed and skirts the edge of the forest. And so the two, as they do when they need to make a decision, have a conversation about it. The first of the two travelers makes his case for going through the forest. Because, it's already late. The town we're headed towards is not that far away. If we head through the forest, we can get there and still get a night's sleep. And the second traveler makes the opposite argument. We should take the longer path. Sure, we might get there later, but with the moonlight, the clear, wide path, the travel will be easy. When it feels appropriate for you, we're going to turn the hands over so the palms face down. And then with the full length of our inhale, we're going to raise the hands up and overhead beyond facing towards the ceiling and towards the space behind us. So an inhale that allows for the traveling of the arms. And then an exhale that reverses that travel. As you're moving, inhaling and extending, exhaling and retracting, really pay attention to the signals the body's offering, right? Even if the prop itself didn't feel like it's too much, when we start to add movement, the propping, working with different musculature, different potential shortnesses, can be very intense. Make sure, number one, that your breath stays constant and fluid. and relaxed, and that the movement you're offering your body is advantageous. Let's just do two more of these big full arm movements. Eventually, and with no rush to make it true, we'll complete our second, and we'll relax the hands back up towards the ceiling. And then just pick a direction. We'll roll to one side or the other, whatever side feels easiest. And remove that propping from underneath us. As we remove the propping, let's engage our third prop, our ball. And then roll back onto our spines. Our ball here is going to seek out access to some subscapular musculature, which means we're going to need to remove the scapula, which is what we were doing there. Remove the scapula is definitely the wrong word. Move the scapula. Remove the scapula from impeding. We're looking here for the bottom edge, that inner edge, medial edge of the scapula, off of the spinal column, but in between kind of where the bottom edge of the scapula and the spinal column sit. And we're just going to allow our ball to find that spot. For most of us, this is, I don't know if most of us is fair. This could be an intense spot, right? There's a high possibility of dysfunction here, muscular dysfunction here. And so if we get there and it just feels super intense, check back in with your breath. Make sure that the rate of respiration is delicate and easy, relaxed and balanced. If we can't relax our breath, it's nearly impossible to relax the body. Legs can be bent here, legs can be extended, whatever feels most ideal. Eventually, and really we don't want to add movement until the musculature is relaxed, but eventually we're going to add some movement. So start to kind of find balance, and then we'll let the palms fall towards the floor. We'll let the hands fall towards the floor, palms up to begin with. Feel how that feels on the spot on your back where we have the ball. And then we'll reverse this, just turning the palms down. And we're going to head right back to the same movement we were just in. So an inhale, that extends us overhead. You can feel, you're likely to feel, the intensity of that shape increasing. And then you exhale and release the hands back. As we lift the arms, the scapula floats up, and the ball gets access to musculature that is protected by the scapula. And at the same time, as the arms lift up and the scapula is floating away, we also put that musculature under tension. We pull it to length. And so it's both available and under tension, and then the ball really can do its work. Remember that we want the breath to be full and fluid. And the next time the arms go overhead, we're going to pause there. If you get into that point where your arms are overhead and it feels bad on the shoulders, just go to cactus. And if it feels accessible to you, you can just leave the arms overhead. Make sure you're making the right choice for your shoulders, though. And now, if you want to be searching for refinement in the shape, you can bend the knees if they're not already. And you can go into just like a subtle little bridge where you can start to move the hips laterally. That movement will change how the musculature in that posterior chain is getting pulled. And that can pretty significantly impact how the ball is interacting with the musculature it's connected to or pressing against. So optional here, you can stay static, but if you want to kind of search for areas that could use more attention, lateral movement is the perfect key here. We'll be here for just another 60 seconds. And so because of there's two travelers, they have a very simple way of determining what to do if they disagree. It can't be a democracy because there's two of them. It would be tied. So they just alternate. If they're in a spot where they disagree, one time they go with one person's opinion, the next time they go with the others. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll pull that ball out from underneath us. Let the arms return back to our sides and just let your body relax here. Note how the breath is impacting you. And then when you're ready, we're going to take that ball to the second side. Just slipping it underneath us. Looking for that spot at the base of the scapula, just off the spinal column, and letting your body relax. You really do want the ability to fully relax before we add any movement. And so in this particular case, in this particular disagreement, it's the first traveler's opinion who they go with. And so they head down the path into the darkness of the forest. When it feels appropriate, we'll turn the palms down and we'll inhale the arms overhead towards the space behind you. And as we exhale, the hands return towards our sides. Just following the length and duration of your breath, syncing that to the speed of your movement, not syncing the movement, or not syncing your breath to the movement speed, but syncing the movement speed to your breath so that the movement is slow and controlled, just like your respiration. Maybe one or two more times of this dynamic movement, and then we'll come to a static place with our arms either overhead or in cactus, depending on what feels best for your shoulders. No matter where you land, checking in on your rate of respiration so that your breath is at ease. And so as these two travelers wander under the canopy of the forest, the moon's light is blocked out. Trails harder and harder to see with each step. They continue on, knowing that each step takes them closer to their night's rest and their travel's destination. We'll give ourselves just another 30 seconds here on this second side. And when it feels appropriate, we can remove that ball being underneath the second side and set that to the side. Let your body come back to neutral, relax back into that space. And your way into the full fluid breath. Once you feel realigned, reintegrated, we're going to take our right hand and we're going to grab our left knee. If the knee doesn't work here, you actually could do this with the hamstring. So the best way to do that if you're going to the hamstring is going to be to pinch the calf down so there's a little more leg activity. Our goal here is going to be to pull some space into the rib cage. So with the right hand on the left leg, we're going to start to push that left leg away from us. And at the same time, draw the right shoulder back. The left palm can just rest up. This is, a bilateral activity. It works across some sacrum stability. So it's theoretically possible you can get a sacrum pop here. Try to think of how you can draw your breath into the rib cage. And the more we're able to activate the right shoulder back while giving that leg pressure, the better that will be for our rib cage space. And then we'll relax. Maybe feel a little asymmetry there. And we'll head to the second side. So left hand's either going to grab the knee or tuck underneath. And then we're going to pull that leg away and retract that left shoulder down. Right palm kind of relaxed. And we'll relax. But the bottoms of the feet come together and knees fall out wide. Won't be here long, just a little reset check in. When it feels appropriate, let's bring the knees back to neutral. We'll extend the legs down the mat. And maybe inch your way over to the left edge of your mat here. And then let's walk both feet over towards the right corner of our mat. So we start that little lateral pull. We'll extend the left arm straight up and overhead towards the space behind us, not towards the ceiling. And then the right hand can grab the left wrist. That right hand is going to start to pull the entirety of the torso into this little lateral bend. And then we want to settle in for our breath. So we're back to searching for a rib cage space. If this is all manifesting in the left shoulder, bend the left elbow so that's not the case. We're not trying to torque the shoulder. We're trying to open up this kind of midsection, torso section lateral chain. Find some space in between the ribs. You can turn your gaze towards the right. That will help open that left side. And then we just want to find our way back into our breath. Find that fluidity within your respiration, the delicateness within your respiration. Think about drawing space into the lungs. And from that space you're pulling into the lungs, how that is manifesting in space between the ribs. While each step takes them closer to their destination, it also leads them further and further into darkness. And they start to hear sounds, terrifying sounds within the forest. And eventually, although it's incredibly hard to see, they're quite certain that they've lost the path. Give yourself just 60 more seconds here. Really feeling into that intercostal space, that space between the rib cage, or the ribs themselves within the rib cage. Last 10 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, allow the arms and the torso return towards neutral, the legs to walk back, and bend the knees here. Let the body settle back into that space, back into your breath. And then we'll walk our body over to the right edge of our mat for side two. We want to feel realigned, reintegrated. Even if we don't feel perfectly symmetrical, we want to know our kind of anchor points, our hips and our shoulders are neutral. And then we'll extend the legs down the mat. Walk the feet over to the left corner. Reach the arms up and overhead. And then we can take that left hand to the right wrist and use that left hand to help create this bend. The bend, just find your way into your breath. Remember that we don't want this all in the shoulder, so you can bend that right elbow to help protect the shoulder. And we just breathe right into the rib cage. Eventually, the second traveler stops the pair. As you know, I don't think we're on the trail. I don't like what I'm hearing. I don't like that I can't see. I think it's time we go back. First traveler says, I don't like what I'm hearing. I don't like that I can't see. I'm not sure we're on the path, but we've come so far. We turn around now. Even if we arrive at town tonight, we will barely be able to sleep. And so the two have their discussion, each taking opposite sides. In the end, they disagree, with the second traveler having the say and finally saying, I don't care about the time. I don't care that we've come this far. The right thing is to turn around and get back on track. And so the second traveler slowly, painstakingly retraces their steps from deep within this dark forest towards the clear path. And your breath to the ribs. Make sure your respiration is easy. Ask yourself if there are places within your body that you can relax, make this shape more beneficial. We have about another 60 seconds here on the second side. It feels appropriate. We're bringing the arms, torso back to neutral, bringing the feet back to neutral. You can move your body towards the center of the mat as you allow for this integration. Feel the lateral chain space that you have. And let's interlace our fingers. You can kind of keep the elbows bent. All we're looking to do is just have the knuckles And the palms are going to face down towards the feet. We're going to extend the arms up and overhead. And you can push those thumbs away from you. If you squeeze the core, you get that nice little lumbar flattening. Could help align that medial space to the lateral edge space we've created. And then we'll relax. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide one last time. Again, this won't be super long. Just checking in on this space. As they're making their way back towards the path, the first traveler keeps kind of saying, I think we've gone too far in. It's really too late to turn around. But eventually the trees start to thin. You can see the moonlight again. And then they can see the moonlit path. We'll inhale the knees to neutral. Arms can come to cactus here if that feels appropriate. And we'll start some dynamic lateral sway. A little bit of final exploration for the space we've created. Just exploring your body's ability to rotate, eventually letting the knees settle to the left. Really feeling at ease as you settle here. Last 10 seconds on this first side. And then we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And let the knees fall over towards that second side, the right side. Settling once again. Allowing your breath be at ease so that your body can be at ease. Last 10 seconds here on the second side. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. As the knees come back to neutral, ask yourself if there's any tweaks, adjustments, movements that your body could benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything you need, if you're ready for some stillness, Let's find our way into a shape where we can appreciate just that. We'll just settle in for a little Shavasana. Eventually, the two travelers following the moonlit path do find their way into town. And they settle into a little inn just at the edge of the forest. In the morning, they have a conversation with the innkeeper, who points in the direction they came from. He says, I hope you're aware, if you're headed in this direction, the path through the forest is closed. We've had problems with a monster there that's been doing horrible things to travelers. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. The first traveler looks at the second with an acknowledging smile, movement to your wrists, your ankles. Says, you were right, like you usually are. Movement into your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, your hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body will move, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in. We'll find our way back into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. Just finding your way back to fluid, easy respiration. And with your next inhale, bring your hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that it's never too late and it's never the wrong thing to do the right thing? See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Have a beautiful evening. We'll practice again tomorrow night with a little bit of movement. Hang in there. Love you. See you soon. Mwah.